Welcome back. I'm so glad you're here. A couple weeks ago on Instagram, I did a Q&A. I do Q&As on Instagram pretty often, so join me over there at EMWILSS if you have questions to ask me. I wanted to save some of them and talk about them with you here. So I'm gonna do a little quick fire and tell you about all kinds of things that I've never talked about and answer some of your other questions. So I've got them all right here. Here we go. Do you speak or understand some Dutch? Is it hard for you that you don't understand what your husband is talking about with your son? I do understand a lot more Dutch than I ever dreamed possible. I had a book a number of years ago that I studied a lot, and then I used Duolingo. I don't know if you guys know that little green owl who helps out a lot. I haven't been studying as much, but when Daniel is talking with people, I can kind of understand what they're talking about because he speaks very simply to Zion about different things, right? Zion's language is very simple. Let go of this, go get your ball, things like that. I understand Daniel right now when he's talking to Zion, but later on when they're having conversations, I know I'm going to want to understand what they're saying when they're, at the dinner table talking to each other. So I need to improve that and apply myself more to learning Dutch. It's a very hard language for you Dutch girls out there. It's not easy. How do I ask a date about his faith or talk about my faith on a first date? A lot of times, people say, oh, don't talk about religion, don't talk about politics, whatever. If it's important to you, talk about it, right? My faith, you guys know, to me is everything. And so on a first date, I would just say, were you raised with any religious upbringing? Like, did you have any affiliation to faith as you were growing up? And you can share about that openly yourself, that this was your religious upbringing, or you were, had none whatsoever, but then you came to have faith as a really important part of your life. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that question. And then you know where he stands with that right off the bat. And that makes it a lot easier. Advice on picking a wedding date. Picking a wedding date is so hard. Daniel and I were between October 30th and December 30th, and it all revolved around his brother's school schedule because his brother was still in school, and we had to pick a day around his vacation. Take it to prayer. Take everything into consideration with your families and, a date that works well for everyone. And then you just gotta pick. You just gotta go for it. I remember talking about it for so long and we're like, we just gotta pick. We thought a Christmas wedding would be really beautiful. October would have been nice, but Christmas, highly recommend Christmas weddings. What are your go-to questions to ask someone if you want to engage them in a conversation? I've traveled all over the world. I've sat in cars with people for hours and hours and hours, and one of the things that I've gotten very good at is conversation. It's more than I can answer in a Q&A. Would you guys want me to make a video? Tips for small talk, tips for being a great small talker, tips for being a really good conversationalist. I have no idea if you'd have interest in that video whatsoever, but that's something I honestly can say that I've mastered over time with the thousands of hours that I've had to spend with people that I don't know. Thoughts on swearing. We do not swear ever, and that's because it's very scriptural. Daniel and I, neither one of us think it's necessary for speech, so it is not allowed in this house. How can I strengthen my relationship with my sister? Those of you know I have two sisters. One of the best ways to strengthen your relationship with your sister is to call her and text her and show interest in what's going on in her life. A relationship with a sister can be very challenging, right? As the years go on, as the seasons of your life change, your relationships with your siblings will change. Relationships with sisters are not easy because every woman is so different. My sisters and I are all so different, but we love each other so much. One of you asked, who is your best friend other than Daniel? My sisters by far. I love them so much. Our relationships haven't always been easy. So I would say show genuine interest in her life and pray for the strengthening of your relationship. Be very specific in asking the Lord to open communication for the both of you, open trust for the both of you, and help you cultivate a good, strong, close bond with your sister as the years go on. Those are my best tips. Thanks for being here. If you're enjoying this Q&A, smash that like button, okay? How to stop comparing yourself to your boyfriend's ex. Really good question and hard thing to do. First of all, don't be checking out her social media, right? Second of all, he should have all his pictures of her taken off of his social medias. But if you are stalking her, seeing what she's doing, checking out her pictures, things like that, that's not going to help you stop comparing yourself to her at all. And you guys know I am all about like using words to interrupt my thought processes when I know they're not good or not healthy. One of the words that you could say to yourself is present, right? When you start thinking about the relationship, what it was like, if he likes her more or whatever, you know, we go through so many different things when it comes to our boyfriends, exes, to stop those thoughts and say present. Who is he with today? Me. Who is he going on a date with today? Me. Who is he in love with today? Me. And that is what matters. And so I'm going to look at the present and stop looking in the past and realize that what I have is good, and that if I want to keep comparing, keep being jealous, doing all that stuff, I could totally ruin the good thing that I have with him right now. Recognize that. Don't ruin a good thing that you have. I'm just saying. Advice for long distance relationships, especially when the guy thinks it will never work. If the guy thinks it will never work or the girl thinks it will never work, it's never going to work. Both people in a long distance relationship have to be committed 100%. I would say 1,000%, but that doesn't exist. Does that mean sometimes you can't like struggle and have doubts about your long distance relationship? No, but you have to be fully committed to making it work in order for it ever to. Capiche? That's it. Where do you stand on politics? This is something I'm never going to talk about on my channel. If you're not here looking for political things, you have come to the right place, because it's just not what I'm called to. I share with you what's on my heart, what God has put on my heart to share with you, and politics is not one of those things. I'm never going to share about what I think about politics. I'm never going to share about who I think you should vote for. I'm never going to share or talk about any of those things. I try to make everything that I do what God has asked me to do and share with you, and I don't think that one day, you know, the Lord's going to strike my heart out of the blue and say, hey, Emily, I want you to start talking about politics. I really don't. So I will never talk about that. Now you know. What is your Enneagram or Myers-Briggs type? I have no idea. And all you Enneagram people are just going to go nuts. I don't know any of those things. Daniel doesn't know any of those things, because for us personally, we just don't care. Those things just don't matter to us. It's just not a thing that I care about knowing or looking into or researching. Oh, it'll help you so much. And I know that that's, you know, figuring out that person, your personality type, your Myers-Briggs, if you're INFJ or INTJ, is important to some of you. It's just not important to me. This is something I never talked about before. I'll tell you a couple of reasons. Someone says, why do you avoid talking about your dad? How was it growing up having a famous father? First of all, my dad is the best ever. My dad is the most gracious, loving, wonderful man you could possibly meet in your whole entire life. I love him so much. Dad, if you're watching, I love you. Second of all, yes, my dad is an actor. My dad was in Back to the Future. He was in Freaks and Geeks. He's been on SpongeBob SquarePants for as many years I can remember. He has been in zillions of shows, movies, etc. I don't avoid talking about it. I don't, you know, it's not some hidden secret. Some of you know that, some of you don't. But the thing is that my dad's work as an actor in the entertainment industry is just his job, right? If you think of all the YouTubers you follow and you know, I would bet you, for most of them, you don't have a clue what job their dad does. Nor do you care. And that's the same thing with my dad. Is acting and being in the entertainment industry is just his job. As much as your dad's job might be being a mechanic or being an accountant or running his own business or whatever your dad's job is, for me it's just my dad's job. And my dad is so talented, but that's just his work. And that's why I don't talk about it, because just like, you know, your dad's work is his work, that's my dad's work. So that's the answer to that question that some of you might not have known, but now you do. What if your college boyfriend is going broke and is asking if it's okay to split the bill? I think there comes a point in a relationship, and I don't have like a timeline on this, but where you should both be paying for things together. I think that Daniel and I talked about this in our first date tips video, but I think the man should pay in the beginning, at least for the first couple of dates, but then it kind of becomes a shared thing, especially especially if you go out a lot. The burden of paying should not be on your boyfriend for every single thing you do a year on into your relationship, and that's for every couple to figure out together, and something that you just talk about openly. You have to, and that's part of the communication of being in a dating relationship, is to talk about things like that. Do you ever get criticized for being Catholic within the evangelical Christian community? I do not. Thankfully, people have been very loving and open about me being a Catholic Christian, which we've talked about many times before. And I think that's really cool. And I think that I've had fruitful discussions with a lot of people. I know and have a lot of friends who are in the evangelical Christian community, and I think that that's really cool. And, you know, a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about being Catholic Christian. I've thought about making an assumptions video based on being Catholic. I would never do an assumptions video about my life because it would be more painful than you could possibly understand for me to read them. Like, if I had you guys send in the assumptions about my life, I would cry for like probably 2 weeks. But I've thought about doing an assumptions about Catholicism video because a lot of people think a lot of different things about Catholicism that aren't actually true. So maybe one day I'll get to that. But I don't get criticized, and for that I'm really, really grateful. I'm 18 with relatives who keep being pushy about me going on dates, and I'm not interested now. Help. I have a video on that I will link below. It's about when people won't stop bothering you about your love life. So watch that. Do you have a podcast? I started a podcast on my Patreon channel. On my podcast, I'm talking about all different kinds of things, doing interviews with people and things like that. So I will link that below as well. It's the $4.99 a month tier that gets you access to my podcast, which I'm doing usually multiple times a week, which has been really fun. Best advice for a single woman who is terrified of the thought of marriage one day. The thought of marriage, when you haven't met the person, if God's will for you is marriage, God has designed for you, is terrifying. And I think it becomes less terrifying when you meet this man and you can kind of picture a life in marriage with him. It becomes a lot less daunting. It becomes a lot less scary. And that's all I can say about that, is it becomes more of a, oh, okay, that's like something I can picture myself doing. And it's not as terrifying because I love this man and I trust this man and I know this man. And that's something that I can see us doing and that I would feel comfortable doing with this man that I love and trust. This is a good one. I'm worried about what my fiance's best man is planning for his bachelor party. My fiance says to trust him, but he won't discuss it. I was engaged to Daniel knowing that he is the kind of man who, if he was thrown a bachelor party, which he did have a bachelor party, I don't even remember what they did. I knew that the man I was engaged to, Daniel, if he showed up at his bachelor party and there was anything wacky going on, going to a strip club, hiring strippers, whatever, that he was the kind of man who would walk out and say, this is not what I do, this is not what I'm into. I hope that you would trust the man that you're engaged to do that. As a woman of faith, you guys know who I am. I don't think it's appropriate for anybody to have strippers at any bachelor or bachelorette parties, because that's not what I think is the appropriate celebration before marriage. I think it's the objectification of people. It just doesn't make any sense. So I would say to have an open conversation about that, to say, I'm engaged to you and I trust you and I love you. And I would hope that if anything that went against our values, our morals, our beliefs came up at your bachelorette party, that you would walk away. And it's okay to kind of express that. I just never wanted to be engaged to a man that I couldn't trust in that way. So it's something that I thought about and considered, and I knew that that was who Daniel was. Where did you take your family photos? The one you have on the mantle. You guys have seen that on Instagram. We took our family photos in Holland. That was on the day of Zion's baptism last June. They turned out so beautifully. I still love them so much. Does Zion have any allergies? Oh, thank God Zion doesn't have any allergies. My sister's dear sweet son I love him so much. You guys know my nephew. Some of you have been around long enough since he was born. He has a lot of allergies. And so I see the way that she has to prepare food for him and, what she can do with him. And so I don't take it for granted that Zion doesn't have any allergies. Where were we one day? Oh, we were at the zoo last week and I gave Zion a bite of my food and she said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine just being able to give my son a bite of my food, right? Zion tries, different samples at Costco and I never have to worry about if there's wheat or eggs or dairy or peanuts in them. And for that, I'm super grateful, at least that no allergies have shown themselves for now. How did you lose your baby weight? Nursing. I'm still nursing Zion. I talked about that last week. Some women, they nurse their babies and all of their baby weight stays on and their body just hangs on to it because it wants to. Mine was one of those bodies that when I nursed, like all of my weight went away. And that was crazy. I always wanted to know what it was like to be a teenage boy. To be able to eat whatever you want and not gain a pound. And the process of breastfeeding has been that for me. It's been crazy. I eat healthy. I'm not, eating doubles every day from In-N-Out, but I have just eaten and kept eating because I've been really hungry with Zion nursing so much over the past year, and it all just fell off. Again, it doesn't work like that for every woman, but that's just the way it worked for me. How long have you been Catholic? I was baptized when I was about 8 or 10 weeks old, I think, so almost 30 years. 30 years by now. I've been Catholic. Thoughts on when guys say you're wife material for a couple of years down the road? Maybe you've heard this once or twice. Holla if you have, your wife material, but like for my life, like 5 or 7 years from now. This is never a good sign, and this means you should run in the opposite direction. This is why I've had so many of my nerdy, awesome, amazing guy friends marry those beautiful wife material girls, because those guys who say, oh, you're wife material for a couple years, they're still busy, trying all the flavors and dating all the girls. But those girls who are wife material, they meet a guy who's serious and says, you're wife material and I want to date you right now because I don't want you to get away from me to another guy. And then they pursue her properly. Yeah, if he says you're wife material for a couple years down the road, split. Say, yeah, haha, okay, bye. How do you raise a God-loving child? Zion already seems to love him so much. We talk about Jesus all the time. Zion and I go to church every single day. And in Catholicism, which is a lot of people think that Catholicism is not about Jesus. Catholicism is all about Jesus. You can see in Catholicism, we have a lot of imagery of Jesus. I have a lot of imagery of him and of different kind of faith things all over our house. And I just share mostly with Zion about how much Jesus loves him. I just try to teach him simple prayers. I love you, Jesus, with my heart. Super easy, and he'll put his little hand on his heart. It's really cute, but I just try to do simple things like that and point and show him all the imagery and tell him who that is, and say Jesus loves you and all of the truths about who Jesus wants to be for him in his life. Really, really simple approach right now, but that's what I've been doing. Who filmed your wedding video? This amazing woman named Teresa. And the worst part about the whole thing is that ours was the last wedding she ever did. So many people have asked me, oh my gosh, I would hire her, blah, blah, blah. Because yes, our wedding video, I'm biased, it was my wedding, but man, she did such a good job. As an adult woman, how long do I wait before asking about being official? I wish there were timelines for all of these things. I would say a general idea is 3 months. Some of you may have different ideas about that. You're welcome to chime in. How long do you think as an adult woman you should wait before asking about being official? I think 3 months is a good bar. Some people go on 4 dates and they become official. That's why there's no official timeline to the whole thing. But I think after 3 months you can say hey, where do you see this going? We've talked about this in many videos before. If you want to bring something up, you have every right to bring that thing up. Whatever it is in dating. Do you think everyone can find love, or some people are destined to be alone? Good question. In my faith, it's interesting because in a lot of different faiths, it's either be single or be married. for the rest of your life. That's it. Within my faith, there are different vocations that you can enter into. You can be a single person for your whole entire life. You can be married, or you can become a consecrated religious. You can become, like you see, nuns and sisters. One of the coolest sisters that you should look up, her name is Sister Miriam. I'll actually link one of her talks below because she's absolutely fabulous. Or you can become a priest or a brother. And that's the cool thing, is that in the Catholic faith, marriage is not the pinnacle, presented as the pinnacle of life. It's presented as a calling that God has for you. But one of the callings that God has for men is the priesthood. And one of the callings that God has for women is to be a sister or to be a religious. And I think that that is a really cool aspect of the faith that I practice. There are these callings within my faith that God calls people to that show you that being with one person in marriage for the rest of your life isn't the ultimate source of joy, isn't the ultimate source of peace, isn't the ultimate source of completion for your life. Do I think everyone can find love? I don't think it's God's plan for everybody to find love, because I think God has specific plans for people, and that's God's calling for some people is to be single. And that's a good and beautiful thing, because again, marriage does not complete us. It doesn't make us 100% a whole person. You can be a whole person in those different callings within my faith, and I think that's a really important and beautiful aspect of my faith. Did you struggle with pornography during your waiting period? I think by waiting period, this person meant before I got married. One of the greatest gifts that I was ever given in my life was the protection from pornography, that I have never to this day been exposed to pornography in my entire life. And a lot of people think, oh, how sheltered. I see it as absolute protection and blessing. And I don't know why that was the case for me, but many women and men that I know and love have struggled deeply with pornography and addiction to that. And I've walked with them and talked with them. They have let me in on their struggle and what that's like. And so that's why I've made a video on that and talked about that. Most people I know were exposed to pornography at a young age, and I was not. And for that, I'm very grateful. Do you have mom tips for what you did with Zion to have him napping consistently? Zion has taken 2 naps a day every single day for like a year now, straight. He missed 1 nap. He missed 1 nap for a wedding a couple of weeks ago. Other than that, it has been 2 naps a day, solid straight. Our night sleep, as you guys know, was a nightmare, but his naps were so solid. And the only thing that I think helped with that was having him nap at home. There's very few occasions where he naps in the car, and I get in the car and I leave with him to go to my parents up in LA. It's about an hour and a half, which is about how long his nap is. And he'll sleep in the car about for that long. It was 100% of the time we were home for his nap, and my life, was structured around that. And some people say, don't be a slave to your baby's nap time. And I think there's all different kinds of ways you could do it. But for me, that at least helped a little bit with his night sleep, to have him get 2 good naps during the day. And that's why I did that. The only time I work and do videos like this is when he's napping, and he's napping right above me. So that has helped a lot. This is my last question. Tips for long flights. You might be taking long flights. You might have some upcoming this summer. One of the things that I would do, and I talked about this in that Q&A a couple weeks ago, is I would bring a pillowcase washed in the detergent that I have here at home, and I would put that pillowcase around my neck pillow. This is getting a little bit scientific here. I would put my neck pillow in that pillowcase and put it around so that I have the smell of home with me. It just does something to your brain to make it more comfortable, and I would sleep better on the flights with that. So when you're traveling, that's one of my best travel tips, is to bring multiple pillowcases washed in the detergent that your nose is familiar with and your brain is when you're sleeping, and it should help a lot. That's my personal Q&A. Some of those things I have never talked about before, but now you know. Some of those things I will never talk about ever again. But let me know what you think. Subscribe to my channel for more videos. That's all for today. I'll talk to you soon. Bye!